Good evening. Hi, this is your host, Deborah Dixon Kinzer with Living with Lupus radio show. Tonight, we're going to discuss a little bit about the history of lupus. I'm under the understanding that there's a lot of people that still have questions about lupus and want to know how it actually came to be. So we're going to talk a little bit about history of lupus, where the name came from, and who the first and the second person was that truly found the understanding of lupus. We're also going to talk about when lupus was diagnosed, how it changed from being a disorder, because that's what it was when it was first came out, was a disorder, to a disease. But the first thing I want to talk to you about right now is I want everybody to understand that lupus is not a disease. It is a disorder, okay? You cannot catch lupus, nor can you give it to anyone else by touching them or kissing them or coughing on them or sneezing on them or even having sexual intercourse with another person, which is all of, anything that you do like that as a disease. It is, caught through a bacterial infection. And that's the true definition of a disease. Okay? So a disorder is where it can only be passed from one parent or one generation. Somebody in your family has to have had some type of disorder within them. So it's a gene. It's a gene that is passed through the family. So it can skip a generation. It can go, maybe one or two generations it can skip. It can be even 4 or 5. But if one of the parents has lupus, and they have full-fledged lupus, or the other one is a carrier, that's how it can be passed on, or both of them can be a carrier, and it can be passed on. Okay? So, disorder is defined as a state of confusion or disruption of the systematic functioning or neat arrangement of a system. That is the definition of disorder. And the true debate is if one or all of your children either have lupus or they can become carriers. Okay? So now we're going to find out who and when lupus was discovered. Lupus was first discovered and named in 1493. Between 1493 and 1541 by a gentleman by the name of Paracelsus. Now, Paracelsus was born as Philippus Honorarius Theraponus Potamus von Hohenheim. He is German, but he was a physician in Switzerland. Okay? He was also known as a chemist, a botanist, an alchemist, an astrologist, there you go, and a general occultist. He was famous for his inconalistic rebellion against the conservative medical orthodox. Okay? So how he discovered lupus was through series of lesions that were on the skin. They looked like bites of a wolf, so therefore he called them wolf. And in Latin, the name wolf means lupus. Okay, so as he was dealing with people that were coming to him and they had all these different marks on them and stuff, and sometimes lesions do kind of look a little funny now. They do look like bites and stuff like that. And you may not be bitten or anything, but they appear that way. And that's how he became, he called it lupus. He called it wolf, which means lupus. Okay. And then the other gentleman is Mortimus Kapasi, and he was a Hungarian born dermatologist and a physician. He discovered Discordia lupus between 1866 and 1870. And how he discovered it is he had patients that came to him. It was 22 different patients that were light sensitive. Okay. So he kind of did a study on them to find out, what was causing the sensitivity to sunlight. Okay. And he found that during his studies that more women were affected more so than men. Kapowski also studied lichen sarcofomorum and lupus erythematosus. And that was in 1872. He was entered into the medical history books for his discovery of skin cancer. So he did a lot. He was, a dermatologist that was determined to find out what was causing a lot of the skin problems that people were finding. So there was also rashes on the face, that were in forms of butterflies that he's seen. And, it was a whole bunch of different things. But each of these men found their own specification as to how lupus became to be lupus. And this is how they were defined it. By considering the history of lupus, of the beginning of lupus, we can make every attempt to find conclusive meanings to how we can control the symptoms of lupus. So, Living with Lupus radio show is pretty much trying to help educate people on what lupus is, how it came about, that you can't catch it from nobody else, and there are several different types. Now, next week we'll probably discuss the 4 different types of lupus and what the symptoms are for those. But for right now, we're going to dig further into the lupus, to really find out how we can explore the differences and use them not only yesterday, not today, but for, possible futures of finding the clues of how we can try to find a cure for this. So we will be prevalent to get the general idea as to what the outcomes can be and how it can implement us in finding a cure. Now, there are a lot of different things that can happen with lupus. People are very sensitive to sunlight. So it's recommended that you only spend like 15 minutes a day, 15 to 30 minutes a day out in the sun, but don't be in direct sunlight. Make sure that you put on some kind of sunscreen and everything. If you start feeling like your joints are starting to hurt and everything, relax, find a way to, just relax and, get a little gentle massage, take a warm bath, salt bath, and that can help you in relaxing those muscles. Now, the question of the day is this. If you have lupus or someone who has lupus, how do you cope with it? And what is your true understanding about lupus? Is there any way that you can find the answers to lupus? If not, who can you go to? What kind of questions do you have for your doctor? Okay? So, write down your questions. Find a good doctor that will help you. I personally have a geriatric doctor, which helps me a lot because he also specializes in internal medicine. And to me, it seems that he does a better job because I had a different internal medicine doctor before, and he did not specialize in gerontology. And it was pretty much like he didn't really know what was going on with me, and he wasn't trying to seek the answers. But, hey, we got over that. I went back to my other doctor, and I was very happy with him. Okay? So I don't have much longer left on here. It's only a 15-minute show for now and everything. So if you know someone who has lupus and they need answers, or they want, to have some kind of clarity about what's happening to their body, give them to this show, the Living with Lupus radio show. You can refer them to my YouTube page. It's the Living with Lupus online video magazine, The Real Life. And check out some of my videos that I have there. If you have any questions, then feel free to send me the questions to livingwithlupusmagazine@gmail.com. And on Instagram, you can leave your comments on our page. It's at lupus_gurist, or inbox me on Facebook at Living with Lupus online video magazine. You can also leave a message on Twitter, or follow me on Twitter as well. And that one is Living with Lupus Mag. Okay? And that's going to wrap up our show for now. As always, Living with Lupus is intended to help you maintaining, sustaining, and retaining your life while living with lupus. This is your host, Deborah Dixon Kinzer. Tune in next Friday at 9 p.m. for the next series of Living with Lupus radio show. You have a wonderfully blessed evening, and please drop us a line so we know what you want to hear about. Good night.